Hey, my friend, Mark Delaney here. I want to spend some time with you tonight talking about the pathway to freedom, understanding the pathway to freedom. Freedom is probably one of the greatest concepts, one of the greatest needs in a human being's life, the sense of freedom, that you're not held back from the life you are meant for. But I want to help bring some understanding to what the pathway to freedom looks like. First of all, it's so critical to talk about this, that before bondage happens in someone's life, there's a famine. The famine happens first. We usually judge people by their behaviors when they're in bondage, but we fail to see the famine that led to the bondage. When I say famine, I'm talking about something in the human heart, something in the life that people are desperate to have and they don't have it. When someone is lacking what they most want in their heart, it leads to bondage. So let's talk about this time of bondage and break this down a little bit. Bondage, first of all, I'm going to say this: the lock on the prison door is this thought: I cannot go away from this prison until my problem goes away from me. This is so critical to understand, because this thought is what keeps us trapped. This thought is bigger than our actual problem. How we think about our problem is bigger than actually our problem. The worst part of bondage is the inability to be what we were made to be. Once again, that plays into the famine that I mentioned. When a human being is not able to be what they were made to be, that is very, very crushing. Secondly, the worst part of bondage is the loss of identity. So let's take a further look at this. Bondage, what it really needs is freedom. Like, that's the need. The need for someone who's in bondage is freedom. But there's different types of freedoms. Many of them don't work. There's what I would call a false freedom. This is when a person lives in a prison and they dig a hole in the floor of the cell, and it only leads to a different cell beneath it. This is when someone thinks, well, if I get rid of this problem, I'm fine. And so they focus on just that problem, and they turn away from one addiction and replace it with a different addiction. Secondly, there's what I would call a fancy freedom. This is making our prison look so amazing that people think we have no problem. I would call this bondage in disguise, or death walking in a three-piece suit. Another type of freedom is a fake freedom. This is when you simply hide your problem. But what we really need is real freedom. And I want to make a statement here that real freedom is needed. Part of freedom is declaring your freedom by pursuing your purpose even before the problem is fixed. For many people, the reason they don't leave the problem or the addiction is because they're trying to make it go away before they go away from it. We hold our life hostage. We hold hostage our purpose because we think that I have to get rid of the problem before I can pursue my purpose. And actually, the pathway to freedom, at some point, it's declaring that you're going to go live out your purpose. So this right here, this line right here represents when you leave bondage. Notice this point where you leave bondage is not when your problem is over. Okay, my problem's gone. Now I can come over here and be free. Let's talk about the steps to freedom. First of all, admit the bondage. It's when we live over here, sometimes the threat is We disguise it, we hide it. We need to admit it and call it what it is. Secondly, we need to surrender the idea that we can fix ourselves. Because there's a lot of effort we give when we live in bondage, that I'm going to fix me and then I will go be me. We can't fix ourselves. Thirdly, we need to be reminded of what we were made to be. When a person lives in bondage, we focus so much on what our problem is, we forget what we were made to be. Number 4, we need to realize that we're not the person we were made to be. This is important because we tend to just look at our problem and think, well, if I stop this behavior. What we don't realize is how we are impacting many people by the person we've become. And that isolated behavior is actually not very isolated, because the problem is really not that one behavior, it's the thinking that we have, and it's changed us. And it's hurting us in ways that we cannot see. It's not just hurting that one relationship, it might be hurting every relationship. And this is very, very common. When people live in bondage, we don't realize it's changing us as a person. And there may not be people in our life that have the guts to tell us, you know what, you're not who you used to be. You're not who you were made to be. In order to step to freedom, we have to realize and acknowledge, I am not the person I was made to be. And this number 5 is critical. Boldly declare your purpose. Can I tell you something, friend? Purpose gives you power to face your problem. Without purpose, what is the point of overcoming a weakness or a problem? Freedom and purpose, they go hand in hand. And people who live over here in bondage and try to fix themselves without freedom and purpose, I got to tell you, can I say it's impossible? For a person to try to fix their behavior and then go get freedom, it just doesn't happen. Freedom comes first. And a major component to freedom is having a purpose worth living for. And can I tell you something? Changing your problem, changing your behavior is not the purpose of your life. You have a purpose that can be very different from your problem. And the pursuing of your purpose is a big key to overcoming your problem. I want you to notice this dashed line here. This dashed line is significant because there's not really an exact moment normally where the behavior just changes. Wow, I'm different. Life change is usually a process. So there's not some exact moment in our life where, wow, I am different now. This is a journey. So in this stage where what we need is life change, let's look at some things about this. We must have consistent, powerful accountability. For me to experience life change, I need consistent, powerful accountability. What does that look like? It's people that see our purpose. It's people that remind us of what we were made for. It's not people that keep looking at our problem. It's people who look at our purpose and they compel us to pursue our purpose. Secondly, powerful accountability is people that see us as free. On this journey of change, there are moments in here where our behavior might look similar to what we used to be. Accountability that's powerful is when people see us and they don't lose hope in us. We have a bad day, we have a bad week, they just keep pointing us to our purpose. It's easy to feel that we are losing during some of these days of life change. Actually, we are learning how to win. And in that journey, we must take consistent steps toward our purpose. Our human instinct will tell us to keep going back to, hey, think about your problem. Go fix your problem. What we need to do is keep taking active, bold steps to pursue our purpose. One last section I want to talk about in this time of life change. This season of life change, it almost feels like you could call it freedom in disguise or life in grave clothes, because you might still look like your old self sometimes. So this season can be discouraging. Am I not free? Because I just had the same problem for a moment. I just had the same desire for a moment. I just had that same feeling again. Am I not free? It's important that we understand this is a process, so we don't give up in the process. This season is a training ground. We need this struggle. It is a good thing, because we need to change the mindsets that took us into bondage. There's so much to be said about this point right here. But our biggest problem is how we think about our problems. So we need this time, this time that seems to be after bondage and before life change happens. We need that season so that we change how we think. Our mindsets need to change. Number 4, we need to change the mindsets that we acquired while in bondage. Because how we thought about our problem, maybe for years, was bigger than our actual problem. So it's actually a good thing if we continue to struggle with our problem even after we're free, because it's teaching us that our problems do not define us. And lastly, this time is not about fixing our problem. It's about changing how we think. And guess what? When you change how you think, it's amazing how it tends to fix the problem. But if you try to fix the problem, it doesn't help you change how you think. Change of thinking brings change of problem. If this is beneficial to you, you can check us out at markdelaney.com and specifically look at the Purpose Mastermind, because this component of purpose is so critical. When a human being knows their purpose, they can stop focusing on their problem and they can get back to living their best, bold life.